What's up, everybody, and welcome to The Gimme. Why The Gimme? Because it's good. That's why. Can't wait. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to break down this week's Workday Charity Open, the first half of the Dublin Double, two events at Muirfield Village in Dublin, Ohio. I'm Jason Sobel. He's Peter Jennings. We are from Golf Bet, and we're about to break this down. We are different bettors, as you will find on this show. Peter, he's a high volume, high stakes better. Me, I love the long shots. I like picking a guy to try to ride him on Sunday afternoon and try to get a big win and a big payout. So we are going to be looking at it from two different perspectives this week. Are you ready, Peter?
I'm stoked, excited for another weekend of golf, and hopefully we have a really strong one. It's a good field and should be a lot of fun this week.
All right, let's get to the first segment called The Leaderboard. Why is it the leaderboard? Because we're looking right at the top of the odds board so far this week. The top five on the board: Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Jon Rahm, Brooks Koepka, Xander Schauffele, all guys who are 20-1 or lower odds this week. Now, if you're new to betting, well, here's one very easy way to do it. If you're not that into golf, you're not that into betting, hey, what do I do? I got all this stuff swirling around in my mind. I'm reading all the articles on the Action Network. I'm reading everything on PGA Tour site. What should I do here? Well, very simple. Pick a guy you know and ride him. So, Peter, what we're going to start out with is they're giving us $50 each. We got to put our $50 on one of the favorites, one of the five names that I mentioned. Where's your $50 going this week on these five favorites?
I'm excited to put $50 on Jon Rahm, who I've invested in every week that he's played since the layoff, and hasn't been the best results. A miscut, which is surprising, and hasn't gotten to the top of the leaderboard, but he's simply too good not to be near the top, and I expect him to win soon. Hasn't been putting well, which I expect some regression there. He's putted average to a little below average, and he's a really good putter. And if he starts making those 6 to 10 footers with more regularity, I expect him to potentially win this tournament. He's my number one overall golfer this week, and I'm loading up on him in all formats. And I think if I had to bet one outright, that's one that I certainly like.
I'm so excited right now because I'm not on Rahm at all this week. In fact, I'm fading Jon Rahm. And out of those five guys, like JT, Koepka started flexing on social media. So not sure which Brooks Koepka is going to show up this week, but he might be a little angry this week and trying to go out and prove something. But my guy is the defending champion of the Memorial Tournament, which will be played next week, but still the same golf course, Patrick Cantlay. The guy just shows up week in, week out, doesn't really take a week off. So I think if you're going to bet somebody outright, at least it's a guy that's going to give you a chance. We've seen some of these other players, Justin Thomas, Jon Rahm, have each missed cuts since the return to golf just a month ago. Patrick Cantlay is a guy, though, that doesn't seem to miss very many cuts. So if you're looking for more of a safer pick up at the top, he might be a safe pick. And again, he's done it already. 4th place 2 years ago. He won last year at the Memorial on this golf course. I know I said I don't like Rahm. Can you agree with me at all? Do you like Cantlay at all?
We should maybe we'll have a little side action, Rahm versus Cantlay. We can discuss off air, but I certainly prefer Rahm over Cantlay. But all these guys are so freaking good. It's hard to say that I don't like Cantlay, but absolutely prefer Rahm over him. So we'll have some side action there.
It is really tough at the top. We'll get that side action, by the way. They're giving us $50 to bet in that segment. So, I mean, I'm flush with cash already. So, yes, we'll get some side action. And again, that's for the new bettors, the people who haven't put down money on golf before. If you're just looking at, hey, I only know a few of the names. What should I do? How should I go about this? If you want to be very simple, take one of those guys and you got a good chance of having a guy in the mix this weekend. Let's get to segment number 2. We call this mismatch, and we're getting into some matchups and specifically some 3-ball matchups starting tomorrow morning at 6:45 a.m. Eastern time. PGA Tour live streaming coverage online. Peter and I love it. We watch PGA Tour live nonstop throughout the 4 days of coverage because you really get a sense of how these guys are playing and who's trending in the right direction, who isn't, when you can watch these guys every shot for a full round. So 4 featured groups tomorrow. And Peter, explain to the people out there, if they haven't bet on 3 balls before, what do you get in a 3-ball matchup, and what's the benefit of betting on one of these featured groups?
Yeah, I love doing it. First of all, it's amazing to watch PGA Tour live. I'm an avid golf fan, absolutely obsessed, and I watch every bit of coverage that I possibly can. So it's fun to watch featured groups. And three balls are actually one of my favorite formats to bet. You basically bet one of the three guys to win. Oftentimes they will tie, two of the guys will, but you'll still get money in those scenarios. So I love these formats. It's similar to a matchup, but you get longer odds. You're getting plus money on all these golfers. So it's really fun. And it's great when you're, sweating three golfers on PGA Tour Live. You're rooting for one guy and you're rooting against the other two. So it's pretty entertaining. Every shot matters.
Every shot definitely matters when we're watching the featured group. So let's get to the four for Thursday morning at Muirfield Village, starting with the 7:34 tee time. Viktor Hovland playing really well lately. Gary Woodland, who's got some form, and John Rahm, who you just got done saying how much you like. Are you going with Rahm in this matchup, or is there another guy you think will start off a little quicker than Rahm?
Well, this is my favorite group. I'm going to be heavily invested in all three of these guys. Gary Woodland is really underpriced on DraftKings. Very bullish on Viktor Hovland, and John Rahm is my pick to win the tournament. So this is a tricky one. I would probably go Woodland actually in this group, but I love all three of these golfers, which is going to be exciting. I'm going to be rooting for them and rooting against some of these other groupings.
Yeah, in my mind, we started with the toughest one first because I just thought it was really hard to pick between these three. I'm going with Gary Woodland based on the fact that 5 of his 7 career Thursday rounds at Muirfield Village have been under par. So in addition to having good form, he tends to play pretty well on Thursdays around this golf course. So I like that. Let's get to the 7:45 a.m. tee time. Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, Jason Day. Some fireworks this one. Peter, I'll give you my pick. Sometimes in 3-ball matchups, what you have to do is go through the process of elimination, kind of like having a multiple choice test back when you were in high school. And you say, well, I know it's not answer A, so at least I can cross that one out, and then I can guess for the rest of it. Well, I'm going to cross out Jason Day right off the top. I know that he's a member at Muirfield Village. I know he's sleeping in his own bed this week. Hasn't worked out for him in the past. Only one top 25 finish here in 11 career starts. So Day is off my list. Now I'm going between JT and Koepka. Well, found a stat on JT. So far this season, his first round scoring average is 1.3 strokes on average higher than any other round 2, round 3, or round 4. I just don't like the fact that Justin Thomas has gotten off to some slow starts. So again, process of elimination. Give me Brooks Koepka, who might be a little coming hot and a little steaming mad this week. Peter, who's your pick in this group?
I'm taking JT for sure in this one. I do like JT a lot this week. He's just a bit more expensive in the markets than John Rahm. So for that reason, I see more value in Rahm. But JT, this course sets up very well for him. If not the best iron player, he's right there. Great wedge player. And these are smaller greens. So I expect JT to take advantage of his great approach game. And in this group, I agree with you with fading Day. And Brooks Koepka is one of the hardest guys to project in golf. Obviously, has performed exceptionally well in the majors. And then he doesn't perform as well in the traditional tournaments, but now he's talking on social media. Might have had the tweet of the year in the golf world yesterday. So I don't know. He's a tricky one for me. So I'm going to go with the guy that I have the most confidence in JT.
By the way, you said this course suits JT pretty well. He's Justin Thomas. Every course in the world suits him well. That's what happens when you're as good as him. So I definitely don't have a problem with that. It's just that first round stat got me a little bit. 12:59 p.m. tee time in the afternoon. The featured group of Ricky Fowler, Patrick Reed, and Matthew Wolff. Where are you going on that one? Matthew Wolff riding a heater off last week's second place finish in Detroit.
Oh, I wish Matthew Wolff would have won last week. And I think he'll play well. I was encouraged just to see how positive he reacted. And I just love Matthew Wolff in general. And, Ricky Fowler has a lot of name recognition. And Patrick Reed missed the cut last week, but he'll probably play better. But I'll go with Wolff here. I do think the good form is nice. And I'm betting just that Wolff will kind of get into the mix with Hovland and Morikawa as one of the premier young guns on tour. And he showed why last week.
Yeah, I do like Wolff. He's playing well. His form going into Detroit last week, though, really wasn't great. So I'm still not sure if he's trending in the right direction or if that was an outlier. I'm going to go with Ricky Fowler, who is trending in the right direction. He's posted 67s in each of his last 2 Thursday opening rounds. So it's at least something to work off of. I feel like Ricky is just kind of starting to ramp up something right now. And the way he's doing that is starting off by going low and then kind of tapers off by the end of the weekend. But he's going to get there by the end of the summer. And I still like him for a good opening round. Let's move now to the 1:10 p.m. tee time. Patrick Cantlay, well, I already said I really like out of the favorites this week. With Jordan Spieth and Phil Mickelson, I would love to go with some plus money here and go with one of the bigger underdogs. Spieth obviously can make some birdies. He can make some mistakes. I guess that's exactly what we've said about Phil Mickelson for the last 25 years as well. But for me, I'm going with the chalk here. Patrick Cantlay is the low round one scoring average leader on the PGA Tour this year. Peter, 69, 66, 69, 66, 68, 66 are Patrick Cantlay's scores on Thursdays so far this year. Are you going to bet against him?
I am here, and I know that you're really high on Patrick Cantlay, and I get it. He's certainly by far the favorite of this group. I'm not going to have much exposure to these three guys in general. So because of that, actually, I think there's a little bit of value potentially in Phil Mickelson where you're getting really big plus money. And yes, Phil is as volatile as any golfer out there, but you have another guy in Jordan Spieth who's extremely volatile. And if Cantlay doesn't show up and play like we expect, getting that really big plus money in one round of golf on Phil, who flashed some greatness a couple weeks ago, I'll take that chance and I'll invest in the plus money, which in general in three balls, when I'm looking at these, most of the time where I see value is on the big dog. So out of the three, oftentimes I think there's a little bit more value on the guy you're getting the biggest plus money on. It's only one round of golf. There's a lot of variance. So I'll take that approach here with Phil Mickelson.
I completely agree with that philosophy. I just couldn't do it. I just like Cantlay too much, especially on Thursdays. Let's get to our next segment. We call this one Bettor's Math, and we're going to get a little nerdy for the hardcore bettors out there, but if you're a new bettor, stick with us. It won't be over your head, we promise, but we're going to dig into the weeds just a little bit, take a look at some guys who are 20-1 outright for the Workday Charity Open this week or higher. A few examples on the board. Colin Morikawa, it's tough not to like him, even though he's coming off a miscut, his first ever in his last start. Gary Woodland, we've talked about already. Both of us like him a lot. Sungjae Im is a name we haven't mentioned yet, but we probably should. He's a guy that shows up week in, week out. Matt Kuchar, a former champion at Muirfield Village, and a guy that I know you like, Billy Horschel. Peter, I want to get to you for some of your picks for, I guess we call them mid-tier. If you want to go down to the lower tier, you can, but just outside of that list of top favorites, who do you like, guys who are 20-1 or higher odds this week?
Well, let's start with Colin Morikawa, who, the value disappeared. He was just someone you could load up on DFS and in betting. Had a second place a couple weeks ago, and now the value's gone down just a bit, but off his first miscut ever on the PGA Tour, which is an incredible stat in and of itself. I think Morikawa shows a little bit of value out there in the markets right now. A week off after the miscut, I talked about JT being, if not the best iron player, right there. Well, the guy I would put up with JT and put against anyone with an iron in his hand is Colin Morikawa, who hits just these beautiful baby cuts, and he's as consistent as any golfer out there. And the one bugaboo for Colin Morikawa has been the putter so far. Really struggled putting at places like Riviera and faster greens. The greens are going to be slower this week, which I think benefits Morikawa, who hits the ball as good as anyone. And if he can putt average, he's going to be right there. So I love Colin Morikawa. You mentioned Billy Horschel, who I think is one of the best values on the board this week. Billy Horschel's missed some cuts right there in the number. Again, a guy who should putt pretty well has putted horrible so far since the break. I expect regression there. That's something I'm always looking to do. So Billy Horschel has been striping the ball, playing like he always does. His values come down a little bit because of the results, and that's really just all putting. So I'll bank on regression there. And then Vaughn Taylor's another guy that I think is just wildly underpriced in the markets and in DFS. So Vaughn Taylor, another player who's really consistent, not the sexiest of names. He's not going to wow you with distance or, he's not one of the more polarizing guys on tour. He's just a guy who goes out there and plays really consistent golf. And I think that sets up well here, especially at the prices that he's in the markets.
I want to go back to one thing you said, because it was a really sharp point that you made, Peter. The green speeds this week at Muirfield Village are going to be around 11 to 11.5 on the stimp meter. Why does that matter? Because for next week's Memorial Tournament, they're going to get back up to 13 to 13.5 like they normally are. So that little differential where they're slower this week, I think that benefits guys who are usually poorer putters. I think that it's going to sort of nullify the advantage that the good putters have, and it's going to cut down on the differential between those guys who usually roll it really well and the guys who are more ball strikers who don't make as many putts. So when you talk about Morikawa, who has struggled with the putter a little bit, this could be something that helps him. We look at ball strikers. I mean, we go Keegan Bradley and Benny On and Corey Connors, all guys who tend to struggle a little bit with the flat stick. You might move them up just a couple of notches this week because they aren't putting on the usual greens that they see week in, week out. I want to get to my picks here. I've got three guys that I absolutely love at a little bit higher numbers. Matthew Fitzpatrick. Guess who Matthew Fitzpatrick has standing next to him all week? A guy named Jim Mackay. Probably know him better as Bones. Spent all those years on Phil Mickelson's bag. He's filling in on the bag of Matt Fitzpatrick. I like the guy already. I like him even more with a what should be Hall of Fame caddy. If they ever let caddies into the Hall of Fame, Bones would be a first ballot guy. So I really like Fitz this week. Good ball striker. The next guy, I'm taking him everywhere, Peter. I'm taking him outright. I'm taking him top fives, taking him top 20s, taking him matchups. I got him for first round leader somewhere. Cameron Champ.
Oh, baby.
Fresh off a week where he didn't even get into the Rocket Mortgage Classic until late on Wednesday, flew in Thursday morning, no practice rounds, finished in a share of 12th place. I think we tend to look at these young guns in golf, Morikawa, Hovland, Matthew Wolff, Sungjae Im, Joaquin Niemann, and we forget that Cameron Champ is still just as young as those guys. And oh, by the way, he's the only one of them who has 2 PGA Tour victories already. So I am all in on Champ. Hopefully that's 3 by the end of the week. And my third guy, Scotty Scheffler. Been a weird couple of weeks for Scotty Scheffler. Missed the cut the last 2 weeks, including last week where he shot 79 on Thursday, 65 on Friday. I'm hoping we see the Friday Scheffler and not the Thursday Scheffler. And oh, by the way, just maybe a little helper here if you're looking at Scheffler. He happened to win a Corn Ferry event in Columbus at Ohio State Scarlet Course last year. I get it. Different course, different field, different conditions, but maybe some good vibes for Scotty Scheffler this week. Real quick, Peter, you like any of my guys?
I'm all in on Cameron Champ as well.
Let's go.
Bryson's getting all the love right now for how far he's hitting the ball, and rightfully so after a win. He's changed the game in a lot of ways. But there's a guy out there who's still longer than Bryson DeChambeau, and that's Cameron Champ, who's just oozing talent, swing speed, a little volatility in his game. But in betting markets, especially when you're getting prices like you are on a Champ, I am very willing to invest in him. I had a lot of him in showdown slates last week in DraftKings. He wasn't in the original pricing, so got exposure to him that way. And he really paid off on Sunday, which was great to see. And Cameron Champ has the talent to be a guy who's, one of the best players in the world. And I expect that to be shown off in a lot of events this year. So I love the Champ call. Scheffler has one of the best reputations out there. If you talk to guys who really know the game of golf, he's kind of in that same Sungjae Im, like the big up and coming guy. Mm-hmm. He's been volatile, but so much talent. And Fitzpatrick, of course, I think is another interesting one. So I'd say Champ's my favorite, then Scheffler, and I have no problem with Fitzpatrick. I just don't have any bets on him currently.
By the way, no coincidence that I'm going with a lot of young guys there, because I feel like the veterans are kind of waiting for next week a little bit. They're just kind of like easing their way into Muirfield Village, whereas the young guys are a little bit hungrier, a little more motivated. Maybe they can go out there and pick one off this week. All right, it's time to line them up. We've talked about betting already. Now we're going to talk about some DFS, and there is no better place to go looking at DFS for numbers, for models, for projections, for everything than Fantasy Labs. Peter, for those who haven't looked at Fantasy Labs yet, give a little quick tutorial here and tell people what they are going to find when they go there.
Yeah, super proud of what we've built at Fantasy Labs. It's a great place for DFS information, and we've revamped everything for golf. We're really excited about the product. If you want to enter a contest like the Millionaire Maker or some of these big tournaments, you can make 150 lineups in seconds if you wanted. You can customize your own models for what you think is important this week. And of course, we have projections and just all the data you could need on driving accuracy, greens and regulation, driving distance. There's just so much information there, including some ownership stuff from our friends at Fanshare Sports. So proud of everything at Fantasy Labs, and it's certainly a huge part of my process when I'm building my teams for DraftKings and FanDuel.
Going to put you on the spot here. Give me one name that's either popping in the models that we're not really talking about, a guy who's not getting enough ownership percentage this week, maybe because it shows all those things. Maybe a guy who's his bargain rating is up. Give me one guy who's popping in those models. You know what they say? If he's popping in the models, we could be popping bottles.
I hope we're popping bottles this week. Well, Gary Woodland's one of the guys that we're going to talk about, but he's at the very top. So we'll get more into him in a second. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that I think you can get somewhat contrarian on this week. Emiliano Grillo, if you're going to weight ball striking stats, is someone who's popping pretty heavily right now. He hit 18 of 18 greens in his Thursday round last week. Great ball striker. Probably the worst putter that we've named so far. Is consistently down there in like that bottom 5 to 10% in putting. But an amazing ball striker. And if you're going to take the narrative and you're not going to weight putting at all this week, you're going to say everyone's going to kind of squeeze together because of the slower greens. Grillo is someone that I think is a really strong DFS play that the Fantasy Labs models like, especially if you're weighting recent GIR, which I think is a very predictive stat. It captures ball striking. How many greens these guys are hitting, especially recently, is a really predictive indicator.
Emiliano Grillo might be the worst putter on tour, but Ben On has a song written about how poorly he's putting it. So until Grillo gets a song, we might have to give that to Benny On. So
I like both those guys this week. So we'll see.
All right. Well, it should help on those slower greens. Now, you and I recorded our Action Network podcast earlier this week. And if you haven't listened, go listen, download, rate us, give us comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. But we do it every week. And every week we make our ultimate lineup. We go back and forth on DraftKings, trying to make a lineup for you guys and trying to help you out. And this week, here's what we came up with. Peter went first on the podcast. He took John Rahm. He absolutely is all in on Rahm this week. I went next. I took Cameron Champ. You guys shouldn't be surprised by that. Peter then went Colin Morikawa. Still chalk for us. I went Gary Woodland. Okay, well, now we've spent a lot of our money and we got to go digging a little bit deeper. Sam Burns was picked by Peter. I kind of like that. That's a sneaky little pick. A couple of top 30s in his last two starts, Sam Burns. Then you didn't leave me a whole lot of money, but that's okay. I didn't need it. I went with Luke List, who's only a few weeks removed from winning on the Corn Ferry Tour. Now, granted, we did this lineup about 48 hours ago when we recorded the podcast. Peter, any regrets yet when we're less than 12 hours away from the first tee time?
No, I think we have a great lineup. Just real quickly on Gary Woodland. He's 8,300 on DraftKings, and I expect him to be one of the chalkiest golfers. I think if you look at his Vegas odds and just some of the market movements, I think he's an exceptional pick. And if you're just looking at his projected relative to his price, he's going to be one of the top overall golfers there. So I'm locking him in what's called cash games, your head-to-heads, your 50-50 lineups where you're basically incentivized to have above average lineup. In tournaments, I actually would consider fading him, even though I really have him as one of the best overall plays. And the reason I would fade him potentially in like a Millionaire Maker or a top heavy tournament is I expect him to be 25% owned. And if he misses the cut at that 25% or higher number, you're moving up past so many people that are going to roster him. So that's a really interesting one. And ownership is a very important factor on DraftKings if you're playing tournaments.
Couple other names that we didn't put on here, but I want to get into in the DFS conversation. One guy that I've been rostering a lot this year, his ball striking stats are fantastic. Joel Damon, haven't mentioned the name, but just want to throw it out there. Another guy that you and I like on a regular basis. I think he's one of the more underrated players out there. Jonathan Vegas, he on any given week can go out and win a golf tournament. I just think he's better than a lot of people realize. And Sebastian Munoz, the results haven't been great lately, but the stats are still pretty good. And he's a guy that could pop and surprise some people this week.
Yeah, you just named guys who are having, great starts after the break with their ball striking, which is what you want to bet on. You want to bet on the ball striking versus just the results. There's a lot of noise in putting. That's obviously the name of the game to win week to week. But when you're trying to predict future outcomes, looking at the ball striking, that's a more predictive measure. Guys who've been hitting the ball well tend to hit it well again. Guys who might putt well one week might putt poorly the next week and vice versa. So I think all those names make a lot of sense. Vegas, for sure. We've talked about him a ton in the Action Network podcast. He is a really underrated golfer and has a ton of talent. And if you want to bet first-round leaders, that's the type of guy where you're getting long odds on a really talented player that I look to.
Yeah, I really like him for first-round leader as well. All right. Let's get to our last segment. We call it the perfect portfolio. We are going to build our betting portfolio. But first, we asked for some of yours. We went on Twitter, and you guys can follow us at GolfBet. And we asked for your best bets this week. Tim at PC Sox Fan told us Gary Woodland top 20 at plus 200. Peter, I don't think we're going to argue with Tim. We kind of like that, don't we?
Kind of is an understatement. I think that's a great bet. Nice price, and I expect Gary Woodland to be right up there. I mean, he's playing great. enough said about Gary Woodland. We're very bullish.
Yeah, Tim, we're all going down in the same flames if Woodland doesn't play well this week. And then Clint at BTR 331, Patrick Cantlay, top 5 American this week at plus 250. If you dig through the weeds a little bit, if you're really looking at some of the books, you can find some sharp plays. Patrick Cantlay, one of the top 5 Americans this week at 2.5 to 1, Peter. You like that?
I love that he's looking at the top 5 Americans. I think there's a ton of props. The nationality props are great. You'll see college props, best Oklahoma State player, best Georgia player. There's a lot of books that are offering those, and I think you can find some really sneaky value, especially in some of the more obscure things like top South African, or you can find stuff that's very interesting. The top 5 American, I don't mind it. The reason I'm off Cantlay is I just think that's an expensive price to pay. I get the course history. I know Cantlay is a great player, an amazing pedigree. I don't want to be betting against Patrick Cantlay in general, but the fact that he's kind of priced in that same range as Jon Rahm, I just see a lot more value in betting Rahm in a similar market than Patrick Cantlay, where we disagree. And you could easily be right this week. And, it's hard to discern between, these really top end guys. We haven't talked about Hideki Matsuyama so far. He could easily be right there. I mean, there's so many, top end players that are a little tougher to predict relative to each other than kind of the mid tier and the bottom tier.
Clint, me and you this week. Don't worry about Peter. We got this thing. I love that play on Cantlay. So let's get to our perfect portfolio. And Peter, I don't know about you. Bosses gave me $100 to play with on the show this week. Our bosses at Golf Bet. Did you get it? Did you get the FedEx package in the mail?
Something is so nice about a clean $100 bill.
Whew.
The fun coupons. Nice. This is a lot of fun.
See what we can turn this into by the end of the weekend. So our perfect portfolio. Where's your $100 going this week, Peter? And again, we are different kind of bettors. If you guys haven't seen that yet, Peter's a little more measured. He's doing high volume, higher stakes than 100. He sometimes bets like $105 once in a while. So higher stakes. Me, I just like throwing darts and find some long shots. So these are going to be some different plays from the two of us. But what do you like this week for your $100?
Well, I'm not going to turn my $100 into thousands or tens of thousands. Most likely, I'm capped with the kind of bets that I'm making. But this is where I see the most value. And like you mentioned, I'm trying to grind it out. I want to find every edge that I can. I'll bet things where I see 5 cents of edge, and certainly want a little less variance than just betting outrights and top 5. So I gave kind of a plethora of bets that I think makes sense in that regard. One of the things I always like to look at for guys that I'm bullish on is top 20s. A lot of luck can happen for, if a guy gets, 5th or 1st, a couple good breaks, a couple putts. But in general, if you feel really good about someone, top 20, there's a little less variance. So I'm going to actually use 3 of my bets here on top 20s for guys that we've mentioned. Colin Morikawa, this guy's a cut-making machine. When he plays even average to a little above average, he's right there. I think it's a great bet for him to be top 20. Billy Horschel is one guy that I'm just buying low right now. He had some pretty good prices on Billy Horschel for top 20. And then Vaughn Taylor, really underpriced. And Vaughn Taylor, again, he's not going to go out and win a ton of tournaments, but you look through leaderboards, Vaughn Taylor is consistently up there in that top 20 range. So I'm using $25 on 3 top 20 bets. And then I'm actually going to bet a matchup, which has the least variance out of all of these. I'm going to bet Oosthuizen over Spieth. Not really a bull case on Oosthuizen. I'm just still bearish on Jordan Spieth, who's getting a ton of name recognition in the markets. Listen, Jordan Spieth is one of the most special golfers. I'm honestly rooting for him to become an elite golfer again. It's great for the game. But until he gets his driver and his off-the-tee game back to average or better on the PGA Tour, I cannot be buying him at these prices. So I'm fading Jordan Spieth more than I'm buying Louis Oosthuizen in the matchup, and I'm getting plus money on Louis. So that's my last $25 at the $100 that I'm betting this week.
Okay. So for the new bettors out there who are sticking with us and trying to figure out how this works, listen to Peter, because matchup bets and top 20 bets, if you want to ease your way in, you want to make some money, you want a little ROI, there you go. That's what you should be doing. Me, man, I want to make it rain. I want to pick some winners. So I'm using my whole hundo on 4 outrights. Now, granted, 2 of them, okay, Patrick Cantlay, Hideki Matsuyama, each less than 20 to 1. I'm okay, but I'm still going to make some money off my 100 this week. I'm still going to be able to go out to a couple of nice dinners, maybe some takeout. I guess I can't go anywhere, but I like those plays. And then 2 other guys that I've talked about throughout the show, Cameron Champ, and our producer had to talk me out of using the whole hundo on Cameron Champ. I had to split it up. It works better on the graphic, but I will use only 25 on Cameron Champ and the other 25 on Scotty Scheffler. I like the fact that he's got so much upside. I think he's a little undervalued this week. So, Peter, less than 12 hours away, the Workday Charity Open, scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you for tomorrow?
Always a 10 for golf. I once we get to the majors and everything, maybe it goes to an 11, but always a 10 for golf. It's my favorite sport to watch and engage in, of course, to play DFS and to bet on. And yeah, love that Cameron Champ call. I might have to throw another 100 or something on Cameron Champ to win. I think that's a really sharp call this week, Jason.
All right, but the bosses aren't sending you another 100. It's going to have to come out of your own pocket.
Oh,
Cannot wait. PGA Tour Live starts streaming online at 6:45 a.m. Eastern Time. You can catch all of our coverage at GolfBet throughout the week and on the Action Network app. For the Gimme, he's Peter Jennings. I'm Jason Sobel. Thanks for joining us.